There we go. Shit. There we go. Now, come on. Oh. Little bitty guy. It's a decent pool. All the fish in it are very small, though. This spoon is probably a little bit big for the fish that are in here, oddly enough. They are hitting this. They're just too small to eat it. I'm gonna switch to something just a tiny bit smaller. This one's a little better for right now, I think. I don't want to go too small because I don't want to get stuck here catching 100 3-inch fish. But at least some of these will be able to eat this one. There we go. Just small enough for them to eat it. Yeah, a slightly smaller hook does make a difference. He is not hooked well. God, it barely missed his eye. He's a lucky little guy. There's a decent bass right there. Don't even know where he was that whole time. Oop, little baby bass. Look at that little guy. Whoop, shit. Oh, there he goes. They are very aggressive right now. I don't know if you could see how many fish are going after that. They're just a little bit small, but the bass chased it. So I may switch to something like a minnow just to see. I'll do another cast over here. Oh, that was a good bass I hit right on top of. He didn't even care. I am gonna switch to a minnow before I spook that guy. These guys have done pretty well for me in creeks before. It's a duo spearhead ryuki. It's a 38S. It's a sinking minnow, which in a creek, sinking doesn't make much of a difference. You don't really have enough water anyway, so you just keep it moving and it doesn't sink fast. So it's heavy enough that in a current, it kind of holds its place in the water column, but it's not going to go straight to the bottom on you. You've got time. You don't have to work it super fast. They do have a very, very nice erratic action. Yeah, they're definitely going after this thing. The bass didn't care. It might be two of them over there. Yeah, that is the only downfall of the 38. It is just small enough that a number 10 drift hook will tangle on itself. That was a decent sized green sunfish. I'm surprised he did not go after this. That bass couldn't care less about it either. It might not be a good choice of lure right now. Let me switch back to a spoon and see. I'm going to switch to a little heavier spoon. The spoons in creeks with a bait finesse setup is they are just so light. And these setups are great. I mean, the accuracy is off the charts, but they are not, you know, you hear a lot of stuff on YouTube about, you know, these things casting a gram or sub 1 gram. It's not true. If you see any videos of people casting a 1 gram lure on a bait finesse setup, it's very obvious that it's not a practical way to fish. You see them long arm it like this, and the breaks are so high that, you know, they're casting way over here, and then it pulls the lure, you know, hopefully where they want it. And you know, it casts, but not very well. It's really not what it's designed for, and you're way better off with a spinning setup with tackle like that. I've got a super light avail spool in mine. I mean, it's a very capable finesse reel, and even it really struggles with anything under 2 grams. I don't even enjoy casting anything under 2 grams with it. I've tried the flight feather cormorant too. That was my first bait finesse setup because I did a lot of creek fishing and I wanted something that would handle a lot of the small jigs and stuff I was throwing. It doesn't work. Like, it's not a waste of money. Like, it's a good reel, but you got to understand what you're buying when you buy a bait finesse reel. It's not you're not buying something that you're going to cast a gram, you know, even 2 grams with. Most of these reels out of the box, they start to get really weird, you know, below 3 grams. That's seems like their sweet spot typically ends up between 3 and 4 grams, which makes sense. You know, the lures designed for like mountain stream fishing, they typically are, you know, between 3 and 6 grams, and that seems to be where a lot of these reels right out of the box have their sweet spot. So I think for their intended purpose, they are a very, very good tool to have. And I do a lot of trout fishing, and I have a lot of those trout minnows, and I tell you what, I couldn't cast anything like I do with this thing if I had a spinning setup. It's just, this thing is head and shoulders above any spinning setup for the trout lures and trout streams where super precise pinpoint casts are everything. That's where they really shine, and I don't think you can beat them with anything. Ooh. There we go. Shit. They are really going after this one. This one is a slightly bigger spoon. I was hoping that it would get some of those bass interested because it's got some orange in it, and seems like the ones with orange always get them. I don't know if it's a crawfish thing or what, but it's a gold spoon, a little black, a little orange. It's a little heavier than the first one I was using, but a very similar size. It's a Smith spoon. It casts really, really well on this setup, and I really like the way it behaves in the water. Now he was big enough he could have eaten it. This creek never gets fished. And there's a fishing line hanging from this tree. That was a very, very bad cast. Oh my God, giant tube jig. I bet somebody thought they were smallmouth in here. Now there are smallmouth in this system, not in this creek. It way downstream, a few miles downstream, it joins another creek that is, there we go, that's full of smallmouth, and I don't know if they naturally won't come up this way or if it's something with the drainage. There is a road that goes over it that just has basically some drainage pipes that connect it, and maybe the flow through that is a little too strong and it keeps out the smallmouth. But I have never seen a smallmouth in this creek, but they are all over the creek that this runs into downstream. It's definitely getting some interest. A ton of fish chasing it right there. There we, nope. Something's popping up there. I'm switching to the suspending minnow. It's a Lucky Craft pointer 48, and it has done pretty well for me in these creeks. Like everything, you know, I've got drift hooks on it. I always run the front one backwards. It does not matter. I've caught so many fish on that front hook with it backwards. Saltwater guys, they always turn the front hook around the way you would expect it to be. And it makes sense, and I'm sure that you might get one more hookup every now and again like that. But it does, you know, reduce the amount of rocks that you'll snag with it as it's going along, because it does have a tendency to want to do like that. But in reality, when this thing is like really bumping and moving, that hook is flinging around. And if a fish goes to bite that, it's probably not even going to be against the body of the bait. I get them all the time on that front hook, so I'm very confident with it. I do it on pretty much anything that I run in shallow water will have a backwards single hook on the front. If it's a floating lure, I will turn it around what would probably be considered the right way, but it also depends on the lure. I've got floating lures that I know will dive pretty deep, like a Daiwa, Dr. Minnow, DR Minnow, whatever you call that. It has a tendency to dive a lot deeper than like my great hunting flat side floating. So on that one, I do run the front hook backwards because I know it's going to be bumping the bottom the whole time I'm swimming it. They're right in front of me. Look at that. I could almost reach down and grab that guy. There we go. Little green sunfish. What did I say about that front hook? Perfect. He hit that perfect. But yeah, I mean, I catch them like this all the time. I don't get the least bit worried about losing fish because of this front hook. And depending on the fish, like a trout, I hook a lot more trout on that front hook. Anyway, just because of the way trout are, they like to come up and just absolutely T-bone things. So I get a lot of trout on the front hook. There we go. Another green sunfish. Hook perfect on the front hook. It's amazing the size of lures that you will catch them on. I mean, what was he gonna do with that? This has always been a pretty good hole right out through there. It gets pretty deep. I'm not sure how deep it gets. I think maybe 4 or 5 feet. Not too deep for this little creek though. That's quite a bit of water. Ooh. Nice long ear. Went up and tagged it. A nice for a long ear. I don't think I've ever seen a big long ear. I don't think they get any more than 5-6 inches at the most. Boy, they are chasing it. There we go. Although this isn't a really small lure. I mean, it's a small lure for bait finesse stuff size-wise. It's not really small, but it is really light. So it is fairly tricky to put this one exactly where you want it. Gotta flick it extra hard. There's a whole different set of skills that comes along with the glass stream rods. You would think with a lighter bait you would want to throw it lighter. That's not the case. You see guys on YouTube, especially American guys, talking about bait finesse stuff, and they're out there using it, and you see them and they're doing something like this. It's not a flick cast. You still have to have room. The whole advantage to this stuff is you don't need any room to do it. Like, you can be between trees and cast just like that. almost got something. But if you're having to do this, you know, big long arm, exaggerated Three Musketeer pulling out his sword, you know, kind of thing, that not only do you look stupid, but you're not gaining anything. You're doing the same thing you're doing with spinning gear. You're just introducing the risk of bird's nests. With lures this light, the risk is very, very high. You know, even if you're good with a bait caster, you know, when you're using something that is at the very bottom end of what these reels can handle, and what the very bottom end of what these rods can cast, you're gonna have, you know, a bad time if you go out with a lot of this bait finesse gear that's on the market and think you're gonna do what you see guys like Masakuzu Fukuyama doing, or who's that, Angler Saito, whatever, however you say that, whatever his name is. You know, you're not gonna do what those guys are doing if you just go and pick up some Americanized version of it, because that stuff is designed to be casted from a bass boat with your light bass lures. It's not for this. This is different equipment. Everything's tuned differently. It's a different technique entirely. These are glass rods. They're very, very whippy. You're not doing the cast. You're loading the rod so the rod can do the cast. And I know that sounds like any cast, but it's a different thing entirely. You're not throwing the bait forward. You're throwing the rod back, and the rod is throwing the bait forward. It's a big part of why you can do this in such tight quarters. As long as you have room to put a bend in the tip of that rod, then you have room to cast. You don't really have to move the rod at all. I mean, you just put a little force into it and let it load itself, and it's going to do the rest. You just have to trust it. You just kind of got to send it, and after a while it clicks, and you realize it's a really, really accurate way to cast. You have so much feel for the lure, and the glass is so much slower. Not slow as in action, even though these are a slower action rod, but slow as in the return of the rod. When you bend that thing and flick it, it snaps back a lot slower than a carbon or a modern graphite rod would. And that slower return, it just gives you an extra fraction of a second to time that release, and that is everything. I'm very surprised how sluggish all the fish are right now. It hasn't rained in a few days, aside from, you know, the sprinkling it's doing today, but it hasn't come through and washed everything out. In a little while, I figured they'd be a little more active right now. Speaking of rain, this deep section through here is not near as deep. I see gravel piled up all through here that wasn't here before. I'll tell you one thing, as far as the bait finesse and spinning setup thing goes, I've used spinning gear my whole life, and I just got into this technique about a year ago, probably not even a year. I hadn't used a lot of bait casters, so I didn't really have to relearn anything. I just kind of picked this up as a new technique, so I was able to get my head around it a little quicker, I think, because of that. One thing that I have noticed is you know, I kind of know where my limit is. I know if I was trying to put a lure right at the base of this wall with a spinning setup, I would hang up. You know, I'd get a few over there, but I would for sure hang up in these roots. And you can pretty much reliably take one of these setups and put something, you can put it about as close to the wall as you want. And, you know, aside from the odd root sticking out at the bottom, which probably isn't heavy enough to hang anything, you can put it right at the corner of that wall almost every time. And that is something that I just could not do with a spinning setup. Well, I've got followers. I don't know why nobody's committing to that. I know the green sunfish will eat this thing today. Little bitty long ear. They're all little bitty right now. This is the last time I'm going to say it, but also on the front hook. Now there were, in that last hole that I didn't get anything in, there were quite a few long ears. Maybe this size, maybe a little bigger, that were following this thing. I didn't feel any taps, but it's possible that they hit that front hook and missed it a couple times. But whatever. I maintain that if they were big enough, they wouldn't have a problem at all. I don't think you're going to lose any quality fish doing that. Ooh. There we go. God, he chased that all the way to me and bit it right at my feet. A little bit better. So far, nothing big today. Nothing, I mean, you're not going to get anything big out of here anyway. I have seen, especially towards the end of the year, I have seen quite a few bigger bass in here around, 18, 19 inches. Not many of them, but they are in here. There is always an aggressive little pack of green sunfish in this little creek though. There we go. Little bitty. God, he's pretty. Look at that little guy. That would almost be a good size for an aquarium. Usually these hooks are good at coming out pretty easy. Usually you can just kind of let the fish unhook itself. Look at that little guy. Could he be any prettier? Yeah, these hooks, they have a tiny little barb. They are barbed. It's a micro barb though. I don't know if it'll even show how small that thing is, but it's just enough of a barb to keep a fish pinned so they're not just flipping the hook out. And it wouldn't happen as much here. It's more for trout. They tend to get pretty aggressive and thrash around, and they'll throw out about anything if you leave them hooked to it long enough. But these little hooks, they keep the fish pinned, but they are very easy to get out. Usually just the tiniest little bit of pressure and it'll come right out, especially on fish like these bluegill and ones with the more paper mouths. Don't see anything but creek chubs in there, but I saw a bunch of fish popping right through here. I think it was those yeah, right there. Yep, there they go. I think those are little chubs. Can't really see. Pretty bad glare all through there, and I didn't bring sunglasses. Now there's no trout in this creek, but this looks like a good spot for trout. I wonder if there's a chub in there that would hit that. Seems like these creek chubs are kind of the native to this area equivalent to a trout. They seem to occupy similar water. They like the water flowing. They move similar. They're very slithery and snake-like. They're a lot fleshier, not as scaly. They just seem very trout-like to me. Ooh. Something grabbed it just for a second. Yeah, something is coming up, grabbing it right there. It looked like a long ear. Really hard to tell. A lot of ripple right there. I'm sure whatever that fish was, I spooked him. Decent amount of water through here right now. Tell you what, fishing like this, you do want to run a slightly heavier line than you would normally run in a creek like this. I normally run, you know, like 2-pound mono. If I'm in a place like this with spinning gear, you don't need any more than 2-pound mono. With this setup though, my main line is 9 pounds, and it's JDM, it's a varivas bait finesse, and these JDM lines, they are not rated the same. When they say they break at 9 pounds, they break at 9 pounds. They don't break at 11, 12, 13, you know, they break when they say. So even though it's a 9-pound line, that is probably, you know, the equivalent of like a 6-pound or less American line, because the lines in our market tend to be, oh, bass, tend to be overrated. God, he went nuts on that thing. I cannot believe he didn't get hooked. Had a very, there he goes. He came back. There we go. He had, oh, he's got some red on him. I don't know if that's something wrong with him or what. I noticed he looked different under the water. God, he was aggressive though. But yeah, I was saying these JDM lines, they're a lot thinner. So when I say I'm running a 9-pound main line, you know, if you're running something like a 6-pound line, you're probably running a good equivalent. And my leader is I believe it's 5.5 pound. It's a JDM line, so they don't rate it based on poundage. They rate it based on size, and this specific one, I believe, comes out to around 5.5 pounds. So, you know, it's a little, just gives me a little more strength, because you will hang these from time to time, just like I did on that root. It wasn't anything heavy, but there's just little fine roots everywhere. You're gonna always be catching on little rocks. You're gonna catch the edge of something on, and it's nice to just have a little bit more pulling power, just to turn over that little rock you're hooked on, or be able to kind of pop it loose and not have to worry about breaking anything. So these lures they're definitely not cheap, and you start tying drift hooks for these, now you've got time invested in it, and you just don't want to lose any of it. So that's how I run my stuff, just a little heavier line than normal, and try to be a little safer with my hooks where they're not going to snag as much. I do run the biggest hooks I can though. I tend to see which hooks are going to be the biggest that won't tangle each other. Now there are some exceptions, like that little spearhead 38. They're going to tangle. That's a size 10 hook. I'm not using smaller. It just doesn't make sense to use any smaller. I hook creek chubs on that thing all the time. I don't need a smaller hook on it, but it does tangle a little, slightly annoying, but I would rather have the hooks catch each other every great once in a while than you know, use trebles and have them get snagged on everything on the bottom. This is kind of the last little hole before I get out of this creek. It's a shallow spot, but depending on how the water's been or how much rain we've had, there's usually some fish in it. There used to be a big tree down in here, and it'll hold quite a bit of fish. Ooh, something smacked it. Ooh, there we go. Little guy, he sure fought hard. No shortage of front hook action. I hope that because of this video, somebody running single hooks on these little jerk baits turns their front hook around and saves their lure from getting snagged. Because everybody can do that, and I don't think anybody be losing any fish. Oh, little snake. Where'd he go? Just saw him tumbling out of that little bush. I don't know where he went. Let's see if I can get one under that tree. It's a little difficult for this lighter weight lure. Oh, something's chasing him. With those heavier trout minnows, things like that aren't even a question. I mean, you could just put one every few inches all the way down that log. If you want to cast all the way to the bank, you know, on the other side of that downed tree, no problem. But these lighter ones do rise quite a bit, and you can't do anything about that. It's just the nature of a bait caster. You know, those brakes are gonna cause it to move, and that's why I do lighter spools on everything. I've got a Calcutta BFS XG, and I've got the avail spool in it, the narrow one. And even with that spool, you cannot cast below 2 grams, not reliably. I wouldn't. I've tried. It's a very annoying time. Oh, there we go. What are you? That could be a red breast. Oop. There he goes. That one's probably a good one to end on. Decent for this little creek this time of year. They'll get bigger as the year goes on. Right now, there's just not a whole lot of anything anywhere. It's almost impossible to walk on this stuff. You're just constantly slipping everywhere.